Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
Credit Karma is your evolved financial assistant, making managing your finances simpler and more tailored to you. Join us at creditkarma.com to start your personalized financial journey today and continue to grow with our innovations. Credit Karma. Evolve your finances.
Podcast Dunzo. This is a good episode. We were kind of mean, but that's okay. That happens sometimes.
I like being mean.
But now it's over.
To be mean. No.
Now we're gonna go be nice off mic. Thanks for listening.
Oh,
Thanks
you're recording.
Yeah, I'm recording. You know what the problem is that I didn't say well.
Yeah, I know.
You didn't get the cue.
I didn't get
Sorry.
the cue. All right.
Well.
What's up?
Welcome to Text Me Back, the only podcast. I'm Megan Hatcher-Mays.
And I'm Lindsay West.
We have such an exciting show for you today. I'm going to tell you what it's about right now. I'm so sleepy. Sorry.
Give it to him, Megs.
Hit it. Hit him with it. One time with the podcast agenda. Okay. Lindy and I have been wanting to talk about this very important news story for over a year, but we didn't have a podcast then. And so we've just been waiting for a news hook to occur so that we could finally talk about it, and it's happened. We will be doing a deep dive, if you will, into the implosion of the submersible, the OceanGate Titan submersible, because they found the wreckage. So stay tuned for that. We're also going to dive into a new segment that we're calling Whatever Happened to That Asshole Who Bullied My Friend Lindy in 2017. But first, we have some BBW updates. We have some business updates.
You know what's sad about that second thing you said about whatever happened to that asshole that bullied my friend Lindy in 2017?
Yeah.
It could apply to so many people.
I know. Well, that's what makes it, clickbait.
We could do it an unlimited number of times.
We're going to do this same segment every week until the end of the year. No, there weren't that many. No, there were a lot.
Well, the answer, though, to all of them is nothing. They're all losers.
Nothing. I forgot they existed until
truly
they tried to bone RFK Jr. Anyways, first we have a quick BBW update. And it's this. We did our best to launch a YouTube channel. We tried really hard. I had to learn how to use Premiere Pro. And I was clipping, snipping. I was adding little musics.
Yep.
I was putting in
sound effects. Boing.
Yeah. And you would never know that, would you, listeners? Because you never watched them. No, I'm not blaming you. YouTube is weird and it's scary. There's like 8 trillion people on YouTube, and all they want to watch is one very small man eat 400 cheeseburgers at once. And we don't do that on the show yet. So it's a lot of work, and not a lot of people watch the videos. And so we are going to take a break from YouTube unless we get 10,000 subscribers on YouTube between now and next week.
Yeah, that's right.
And if we don't do that, we're going to take a little breaky break. There's still going to be like clips and stuff on there, but not full episodes. I'm really sorry if that's your preferred way to watch it. It just is a ton of work for very few people to watch, although I hope you enjoyed them. And maybe one day when our podcast is finally being sponsored by the good people at Joe Rogan's Gorilla Dust, we will hire someone and bring it back. That's our big business update.
Here's what happened.
Yeah.
Megan got appendicitis. And when Megan got appendicitis, she got a taste of the good life. And it was called 1 week of not doing the YouTube. And as she said, yum, yum, yum.
I said, chom, 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 chom. That's my food, baby.
And I think that's fair. Because you know who hasn't helped with the YouTube at all? Me. I mean, okay, 1 to 2 times I tried to use YouTube Shorts. Because our YouTube consultant, Chance.
A king, by the way, this has nothing to do with him. Nothing to do with him.
He's been nothing but perfect.
He tried to tell me. He was like, make sure your thumbnails are good. And I was like, oh, Christ.
Okay, come on. Your thumbnails are great, sister. Don't get down on the thumbnails, please. The problem is that we're old woman coded and we don't play Minecraft. And so the people who are on the YouTube are like, they're just not, we're not doing the 1 chip challenge.
We're not doing speed runs of, I don't even know what they speed run.
Anything, Megan. They speed run anything. And I will speed run. I will start speed running. If it means the success of this podcast, I will speed run every game I can get my fingers on.
Speed run the hell out of Cult of the Lamb. There's going to be so many poop meals on YouTube.
If you were speedrunning Cult of the Lamb, you wouldn't even do the poop meals. You would. I mean, you don't really understand what speedrunning is, but that's okay.
It's clear you're not a gamer. So thanks for your support there. But what this does mean is hopefully we'll have more fun little clippy clips on Instagram and TikTok. Maybe a few longer clips from the show on YouTube, but not full episodes for now.
Yeah.
But that we did our best.
By the way, if you love this show and you would like it to continue to exist and be successful, a thing that would be so helpful is if you see a funny clip from us on the Instagram or Facebook. We're also on Facebook. Share it. If you could share it and send it to your friends and repost it and be like, look at this funny haha, look at these funny ladies. They're almost as funny as men. It's almost as funny as a men's podcast.
Yes.
Popular with husbands.
When you repost it, if you could center men in your caption, that would help us so much.
I mean, I will just never forget, like, because it's so true and so sad that when we were developing this podcast with KOW, and I said something about like, oh, I don't remember what it was in reference to, but maybe it was like, oh, we shouldn't have the logo be pink or something because I don't want it to be gendered because I think men would really like this podcast. I'd really like men to listen to it as much as women. And then Aham said, no offense, men are never going to listen to this podcast.
Excuse me, we've bagged upwards of 12 husbands as listeners to this podcast.
It's true, including Aham Efele himself. But he was like, men hate women and don't want to hear them talk.
It's true.
And I was like,
they come up with things about women's voices to hate that didn't even exist before. Like, remember how mad people got about vocal fry? I was like,
so mad.
You guys do that too, right?
You guys like RFK Jr., but you don't like NPR hosts?
That's your man's?
I know he has a medical condition, but it's still vocal fry.
Yeah, don't at me. Another thing you can do, speaking of business, leave us a little accolade. Rate the show wherever you listen to it. Leave us a little accolade. That really helps us a lot if we have lots of good and positive reviews. 4.9 out of 5, by the way, on Apple Podcasts.
It hasn't dipped.
Thanks.
It has stayed so strong.
Yeah.
Megan, I can't remember the last time we got a negative accolade.
Usually, I feel like people just leave a 1-star review but don't leave a comment, which is probably for the best.
There was like,
don't make me track you down.
There were like 1 or 2 mean comments, like literally like maximum 2 in the year.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I tried to listen to this. They think they're so funny.
It's like, I was like, it's true. Yeah.
And you know a man wrote that. That's how men don't like it when women think that they're funny.
They don't
which
like
is related to our first segment today, actually.
That's
which
right.
We'll get to in a little bit.
We'll get to. One last thing you can do to help the show, and then we will actually start the show. Subscribe to the Patreon, patreon.com/textmebackpod. So much good stuff happening on the Patreon. You get access to like our actual real texts. We're doing the Shrill rewatch. There's a Discord for everyone who jumps in at $3 and above. And it's great. You can get merch discounts at the $6 and $8 level because we're launching our merch store imminently. So give it a shot. Patreon.com/textmebackpod.
You know, I am so parasocially attached to the Discord that sometimes like a regular Discord commenter will disappear and I'm like, do I need to call someone? Do I need to call the cops?
Is this turning into an episode of Dateline?
Right?
Am I going to solve the mystery?
Not that I want any of our Text Me Backlights to die, but I do want to solve a freaking mystery, Megs.
I do want to meet Keith Morrison.
Ugh.
So another thing you could do to support the podcast, go missing. So I can meet Keith Morrison. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks. Hats.
Okay, and with that, we're going to launch into our first segment. What the fuck was that all about? / whatever happened to that asshole who bullied my friend in 2017? Of course, it all starts with RFK Jr. By the way, doesn't it always? You know what this is? Actually, I think this is a segment P.U.B.E.S.
I think so. I think so too.
This is a segment
Absolutely.
about people, more than one person, using bad ethics and systems.
Segment P.U.B.E.S.
Okay. The first person to use bad ethics and systems, RFK Jr. So we've talked about him on the show before, his beautiful brainworm, his bear
son
conspiracy, murder,
whalehead.
The whalehead, of course.
He's trained the ravens to do his bidding.
He's covered in ladybugs. We've wondered, where is Cheryl? We still don't really know the answer to that. And recently he was back in the news for entering into a text-based love affair with New York Magazine reporter Olivia Nuzzi. And wow, did the name Olivia Nuzzi bring back a lot for me. And she is the titular asshole who bullied my friend in 2017. I carry a grudge. I don't know her at all, but I carry a grudge because she was involved in something that hurt your feelings, Lindy, and I don't like that. Would you like to talk about it?
Thank you. Yes. First of all, I have a business question.
Yes.
Do we know that it's Nuzzi or is it a Nuzzi?
Nuzzi. I do not know. I don't
It's
know.
probably the Nuzzi, which
Olivia Nuzzi.
Because Nuzzi is like Muzzy, which
Nuzzi. Bonjour.
we have positive associations with.
Bonjour, je suis le grand monsieur.
Je suis la jeune fille.
Yes, that's French they're speaking. And no, these children aren't French. They're American. And they've acquired their amazing new language skills from Muzzy.
Je suis la jeune fille. Bonjour.
By the way, the French love it when you go to Paris and do that.
Yeah, someday we'll talk about when we went to Paris and did that. That's its own segment.
In the meantime, shall we dive into the ballad of Olivia Nuzzi?
I'm gonna just say that it's a Nuzzi. So, okay. But I don't know. But I like it more.
Normally, in a situation like this, I would say something like, if you're Olivia Nuzzi / Nuzzi, will you call us and tell us how to pronounce your name?
Don't.
But if you call this, I swear
Don't
to God.
fucking call us Nuzzi.
You fucking, All right, let's get into it. The story breaks that like Nuzzi, well, she'd done a profile on RFK Jr. last fall. I guess they went hiking together or something, and then wrote a piece about him, and then like went on to be like, hey guys, I don't know if you're aware, but there's a perfectly viable third-party candidate in RFK Jr. And of course, now looking back on it, it's like, what a weird thing to say. But it turns out after she wrote that article, she maintained personal contact with RFK Jr. and entered into what I believe CNN described as a digital-only affair, or like
that's
but
called
she says,
fingering.
Yeah, I was like, first of all, CNN digital has two meanings. So no, but she says it's not physical. It was never physical and whatever. I was like, of all the people, you chose the worm-brained bear conspiracy whalehead guy. That's who you chose. She says she never used him as a source after that article, but she's now on leave from New York Magazine.
Good. So, background. I started at a print newspaper. I'll never forget the day. I remember where I was standing in the office when I was informed that we were starting something called a blog. And I was like, what is that? And they were like,
what
well,
are you talking about?
they were like, well, it's like the newspaper, but it's online. And I was like, yeah, but our articles are already online. We have a website and we post our articles on the website.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, it's like that, but it's like another part of the website. And I was like, why? And they were like, well, it's so we can post every day. I was like, but we don't have time to post every day. We have to, we spend the whole week making the weekly newspaper. What do you mean?
You only pay me to post per week.
Are you hiring a whole new staff? No. Thus began the hell of my life that has continued to this day, where the work never stops. And I always think about J.D. Salinger. It's like, oh, you got to write what, like 9 books, and then you just got to go be a hermit in like upstate New York or something?
Yes. And like I was just thinking about this in the context of Enya, because Chapel Rowan, the singer who I'm obsessed with, every day is giving an interview about how traumatized she is about being a public figure. I'm not judging her for saying it, although it is funny that I have to hear about it every single day in a publication. That's okay. But, it's just like, we should all strive to be Enya, who might be the richest woman who ever lived and who lives in an Irish castle and was never heard from again. And she just like, I don't know, sits on a little pot of gold and eats soda bread and is unbothered. Like
that's the dream. And
correct.
in this economy is pumping out 0 new hermits per year because it's not financially viable.
I won't stand for it.
So anyway, so we started the blog, and then it was like, okay, everyone has to do 3 blog posts a day in addition to all your regular work. And it was like, okay, but what's a blog post? And they were like, it could be anything. So then I would be like, oh, look at this piece of trash I found on the ground.
Literally, one of my claims to fame was I was walking my old dog Hank, may he rest in power, through Volunteer Park in Seattle, and we came across a comically large sex toy, and I took a picture of Hank standing next to it, and I was like, look what we found this morning, and that got posted onto Slog, and it did pretty well.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, got some good numbies. Yeah.
So then I worked at The Stranger for like 5 years, and then I left and I got hired at Jezebel, which is a full-time blog where it's just all blogging all the time and you never stop. You got to feed the blog, they say. And so I'm feeding the blog. It's what I'm there to do. It's what I'm hired to do. Jezebel was a feminist blog, a Gawker Media property. And there was just this vibe that in some respects continues to this day, that women are a drag. And Jezebel was a sort of scolding, bitchy, dorky drag of the Gawker Media world. And there were certain Jezebel authors who were cool enough to like be friends with the Gawker people. But like, I just always felt, okay, so I'm a very sort of soft, sincere person. And I am just a nice lady. And maybe that is not fair. That's certainly manipulative in some way to be like, I'm just a baby. No one's ever allowed to be mad at me.
I do it quiet.
Oops, I was just trying to be nice. Hey, you can't disagree with me if I was being nice. Like, I get it. That's certainly a manipulation that I do on some level. But when I was at Jezebel, I got this feeling that I was a big bleeding heart dork. Mm-hmm. That on some level everyone was making fun of within the company and without. Yes. And especially when you're feeding the blog all day, you're just pumping out crap, dirty shit crap. You're just
in those days, the Gawker universe really encouraged a lot of commenting. So it was just like in real time, you were getting people being like, you're stupid. Like Gawker would sometimes hire commenters to be writers. Like sometimes, so it was like an audition for some people to be funny and sharp and an
Yeah.
edgelord in the comments because you could end up getting hired.
And it was part of our job. We were supposed to engage with comments because they wanted to build the comment section into its own community. And it's like, yeah, a toxic, nasty community of ghouls and goblins. No, thank you. So that was sort of the background. And look, do I stand by everything I wrote at Jezebel? No, I wrote a bunch of dumb shit. First of all, I was like in my 20s. I don't know. And it was this drive to feed the blog, constantly pump stuff out. And look, sorry, I'm sure other people didn't do this, but I always approached it as like, I'm making comedy. So I would find like a study and I would read the abstract and it would be like, study finds that women who wear lipstick get bitten by snakes more often than women who don't wear makeup or whatever. And then I would write a thing that was like, see, beauty standards are toxic. If you wear lipstick, you're going to get bit by a snake. And like, I'm doing a bit. Like, that's a joke.
Yeah.
I know that I didn't read this stupid paper and I don't understand the science. But, anyway. So, obviously, I opened myself up to critique in certain ways. So, while I was at Jezebel, I had a coworker named Tracy who is really smart and she's interesting, thoughtful writer. I wasn't really close with anyone because I worked remotely. So I only knew people online, but Tracy's like very cool.
Yeah.
And I know that I am obsessed with the cool, non-cool binary to a degree that is probably outside reality. I just have always felt uncool and I have felt very self-conscious about that. Like, I just don't know how to not be a dork. And later, at this point in my life, I've learned to sort of not fight it. But at that time, I was like, oh God, I need these people to think that I'm cool, which is a death sentence, by the way. If you're trying to be cool, you can't try to be cool.
That only makes it worse.
Tracy, very cool, very glamorous. It's like, I remember she wrote a thing about losing her baby weight and how much money she spent to get her pre-baby body back. And she does it with kind of knowing wink, but also this is something that's important to her, which is like, fine, do whatever you want to do. But we're just like, I don't think she was particularly interested in fat acceptance, fat liberation stuff. And that was a big part of the divide. It's like, it was not cool to be like, hey, what if everyone was nicer to fat people? Nobody likes that.
Nobody enjoyed it.
Nobody wants to hear that. And so I think that was a big part of my becoming this sort of scapegoat of the internet, like shorthand for big fat loser dork drag that nobody likes. One day at work, Tracy and I were in like a private chat and she told me that she was pitching a women's vertical to Vice. And she was going to leave and she had put together this whole package to pitch Vice and she was leaving Gawker. And I was like, congratulations, that's great. And then Vice like bought the pitch and Tracy left and she started this vertical at Vice called Broadly, which was the women's vertical. And then she hired a bunch of writers and started doing her version of Jezebel at Broadly and focusing on the stuff that she thought was important. So 2 of her initial hires were this woman named Natasha Vargas Cooper and this guy named Mitchell Sunderland. And I don't know, it became clear fairly quickly that Natasha and Mitchell did not like me.
No.
Which I was I just remember being like, what? Who
the fuck are you guys?
and I had left Jezebel at this point. Like, I think I left shortly after Tracy. So I was only there for 2.5 years. And then I started to get a lot of freelance work. And I was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I don't want to deal with this schedule.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with these commenters. I don't want to be in the crosshairs of the entire internet for one more second of my fucking life. I'm mostly writing for The Guardian at that point, I think. And Natasha and Mitchell are just roasting me all the time. And it was like, okay. And I just remember being like, but I know Tracy. And like, these are her employees. And
wasn't Mitchell like managing editor?
Yeah,
he was like a high ranking job at this website.
Yeah. So specifically, and I only remember this because at that time in my life when I was getting like bothered all the time, I screen grabbed everything. So I just went and I searched Natasha in my screen grabs folder.
God.
And there's this whole thing where she was like, I had written a thing about this guy named Roosh, who is
my God, I forgot about him.
I'm sure he still
Oh my
exists.
God.
I know. So he's this like men's rights guy, except not really. He's
Yeah.
more of a pickup artist guy because he's not that interested in justice. He's really interested in creepy sex behavior.
Yeah.
We don't need to shine the light on Roosh, but I had written this thing about Roosh because he had a men's website that posted like the most horrific shit you've ever read in your life. One of the things that he wrote was something about how he thought that we should legalize rape because it would solve it would end war or something. I don't know.
For sure.
And like, look, obviously, Roosh is doing a performance of, yes, Roosh is playing a character to get a rise out of people, but he's also literally teaching. Like, there's so many teenage boys were into Roosh and his dumb website at this time. And
at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if it's
really
a performance or if he sincerely believes it. It really doesn't fucking make a difference.
I wrote something about Roosh. I bet it was really good. I could go look it up, but I wrote something about Roosh and like just kind of his whole deal and how he's a bummer and his legalized rape stance. And then Natasha posted something that was like, imagine if Lindy West had fact-checked Roosh instead of taking his statements at face value and being outraged. And it's like,
okay.
Like, fact checked what? What do you mean fact checked? Called Roosh and said because people did
source for your claim?
Source for your claim of your opinion that you believe we should legalize rape? Because people did say on Twitter, are you serious? And then he said, yes, I literally believe we should legalize rape.
Oh my God.
And so at a certain point, it's worth commenting on. I don't know what you want. Anyway, so then she said she thinks that I'm a fool and that people like me and Roxane Gay have pulled feminism out of the realm of politics and into the realm of the constant self, which nobody says when men write humorous memoirs, but okay. So whatever. But and then Mitchell is in there and he's like tweeting,
faving all of her mean tweets,
faving them all, and Mitchell's posting stuff like someone gave him a copy of my book to read for Broadly, and then he was like posting screen grabs and making fun of it, and then Nuzzy and the only reason I remember this is because I have it all these ancient screen grabs in like an old hard drive. It's very fascinating actually to go look at. So I found one where Mitchell posted like a screen grab of a part in my book where I printed a bunch of the rape threats that I got, and then Nutzi responded with an eye roll emoji.
Thank you, Olivia. So she's in the mix now too for some reason. Never had an interaction with this woman in your life.
At the time, it's not that I thought that we all have to agree with each other or that they owe me anything, but I just found it confusing. Like, I'm your target? Like, I'm the person that you're spending your time.
I didn't do anything. I mean, like, maybe you think my writing is corny or whatever, but how does that affect you in any way at all? It fucking doesn't. It was kind of on the cusp of this thing that sometimes happens where people edgelord so hard that they just become right-wingers. You know, like they just unmoor themselves from their values entirely and just become this other thing. And yet still enjoy the patina of being lefty or liberal or whatever. It's just such a stupid digression, but there's this law professor, Jonathan Turley. He used to be on Keith Olbermann all the time, super lefty guy. And just over the last 5 years has turned into this insane Trump apologist who was like, no, Donald Trump didn't commit any high crimes or misdemeanors. He should never have been impeached. But he still, when he goes on Fox News, they still introduce him as liberal law professor Jonathan Turley. It's so stupid. And these people get the same treatment. It's but Natasha Vargas Cooper is writing stuff for the American Conservative saying that she doesn't have to accept trans women as women.
Yeah.
And using a lot of really incendiary language about being trans. And it's lefty where?
Yeah.
Lefty how?
There was another thing I found in my screen grabs where she posted a picture. It was like a shepherd fairy. I don't know if it was a real thing or just a knockoff, but it was like a woman in a hijab, and the hijab was a American flag. And she was like, this is a stupid image for liberals to embrace, which, like, yeah, I don't know. Everything from 2008 is corny now. I don't know. But she was like, the American flag is just to try to rile up conservatives, which also, again, who cares? Okay. But then she's like, and the hijab, as a secular feminist, the hijab is inherently oppressive.
Oh.
And we shouldn't be celebrating that. And it's like, okay, ma'am.
Love your values, babe. My favorite one that you sent was screen grab that you sent me before this was Mitchell tweeting that he was in an Uber with Ann Coulter on their way to some party or something. And Olivia Nuzzi responded with, oh, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
It's just like, who the fuck is this lady? I guess I just feel like there's this thing happening where people say this thing. It's like, well, just because we disagree doesn't mean we can't be friends. And it's like, I'm here to tell you, it does mean that. Yeah. I don't want to be friends with you if you voted for Donald Trump. He wants me dead, bro. You know what I mean? He wants to like kill everyone I love and care about. So no, we can't be friends. And Coulter is Satan's mom. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be in a car with her. I don't want to be her friend. No coolness points come to me because I'm able to set it all aside and be friendly with Ann Coulter. By the way, people say the same thing about her. Oh, she doesn't really believe all the shit she says. It's just a performance. And I'm like, it doesn't fucking matter if it's a performance. It doesn't make a difference. In fact, hot take, it's worse if you are performing it. Yeah. I would rather you sincerely believe it. It's worse. That means you have no values at all. You're a sociopath. That's worse. You know what I mean?
But and also, if you don't personally believe it, but you're trying to manipulate large numbers of people into believing it using your platform, are you sure you don't believe it? Like, what's the point of that?
Are you sure? Why do you do that?
I mean, I guess arguably for money, but why'd you pick that? You
of all the things. So strange.
And a thing that Natasha said, she was like, well, unlike Lindy, I don't believe that men rape because of what they read. Which is just, she's pushing back against the concept of rape culture. And it's like, if you're not smart enough to understand what we're talking about, like what rape culture means and the ways that it manifests in society and in people's behaviors in terms of what people think they can get away with and what they can't and what they're bold enough to try to do and what they like. Of course, a little boy doesn't read a Roosh article and then think, I should go rape.
Yeah.
But what an uncharitable reading of my worldview to pretend. And by the way, I don't think that you think I actually think that.
Yeah.
I don't
just being an asshole.
You're just being an asshole.
Are coming up with reasons why you're allowed to be a bitch to Lindy online, to be rude to Lindy online.
And the goal, I would argue, is to be sort of contrarian and cool and be a cooler kind of feminist, a better kind of radical, a better leftist or whatever, and to sort of discredit my success by acting like I'm this like centrist slob.
I think that happens a lot. I think I've seen this crop up a lot in the context of this presidential election, that there's something about cynicism that people just think is inherently cooler.
Sophisticated.
And sophisticated than it is to be vulnerable and to care about stuff. And this was really prevalent between like 2010 and 24, where this idea of like, if you care about stuff that's super embarrassing, it's better to understand that the system is fundamentally broken and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the cooler and more sophisticated and intelligent take.
And you know what I think, Meagan? I think that that's why, to me, being earnest is important, because it's a defense against that. Because I think once you get entrenched in cynicism, like that's where conservatives are coming from. The world is unfixable. I might as well get as much as I can for my family and myself. I might as well hoard everything if I can't fix anything else. You know,
even if I have to hurt other people, that's what I'm going to do.
I feel like that's a step on the road to conservatism, just like you were saying. Culturally, people edgelord themselves to the right, and it's like I don't want to do that. And there was a whole thing like around the same time where it wasn't just Natasha and Mitchell and Nutzi and their cool friends. It was like this whole like leftist universe. I was a laughing stock in that ecosystem too, largely because of, I would argue, Guardian headline writers, but that's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of only reading the
every
headlines.
woman who's written for the Guardian got the screen grab treatment so bad in
So
this era.
rude.
It was not nice.
Doesn't which is like fine. No one loves only reading the headline more than me. But I do think it's interesting because then there was this drift where people were like so leftist that they hated feminists. Like, oops. Okay, guys. So anyway, that was all set up for what happened next.
Yes.
Which is that.
Nutzi.
So Mitchell Sunderland was really into this, like, he's this sort of like gay Florida trash culture kitsch camp. Like, I'm gonna write the definitive, revisitation of Paris Hilton and Coulter.
They're not as bad as you remember, or
Right.
whatever.
Or they're, Paris Hilton's actually the smartest person who's ever lived, which like might be true. I don't know. But like Ann Coulter's actually like a camp queen who's so funny. Only Mitchell is sophisticated enough and open-minded enough to give these people a chance and see them for who they are or whatever. And then people are like, wow, that's brave. And I've just never found, that's not personally that interesting to me.
Whitewashing shitty people's reputations for money. Yeah. Doesn't sound that interesting.
So, and so Mitchell also, through journalism, quote unquote, became friends with Milo Yiannopoulos, who is a famous gay, well, now he's ex-gay, Trump advisor. Well, he started just as a regular internet troll and then became a king of the trolls. And the boys of the internet really rallied around him. Milo really was very good at organizing harassment campaigns. And I think maybe he came out of Gamergate. It's like literally all of this is so fuzzy because I had to erase it. I had to wipe it.
I think it's pronounced footsie.
Yeah. It's a footsie time for me. I don't have an abundance of memories. But anyway, Milo was Milo posted my wedding photos and said that Aham was gay and he was a gay immigrant trying to get a green card or whatever. Milo sent so much scary harassment my way. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that that's the reason I left Twitter, but it was certainly a factor. Like, bye. Okay. Never mind. Then it comes out where all these emails got leaked, and it turns out that Mitchell had been feeding information to Milo and being like, you should write about this, you should roast this.
Milo was writing for Breitbart, so it was like, well, I can't write about this at Broadly, but you should write something shitty about Lindy
at Breitbart. Yeah. And Milo was doing it. And
thanks, Mitchell.
I believe that at the time Milo also was some advisory capacity to the president, Donald Trump.
Yeah. I'm sure he was spending his free time with Donald Jr., who has just like a friendship network of slime balls that includes JD Vance. That's why JD Vance is the vice presidential nominee, is because he has a personal friendship with DJT Jr. Like Donald Trump Jr. gave his dad the hard sell on JD Vance, so that's why we're stuck with that now.
It's just so surreal that... So what Mitchell sent to Milo about me specifically, or at least the only thing that made it into the BuzzFeed article, was that he sent him some article about me and said, please mock this fat feminist. So coming back all the way to what you were saying earlier, it's like, yeah, I'm just like fat. I'm just like a fat dork, and so they don't like it. And then they pretend like it's about politics, that strange that Natasha picked me and Roxanne Gay, that she particularly hates, that we're taking the politics out of feminism and dragging feminism into the realm of the self. And it's like, oh, why did you just pick me and Roxanne out of all...
Lindy, who could say?
Who can say?
Who could say, really?
Which is so funny, because that's why I have to keep writing about it.
Because of you dicks.
Because you dicks hate it. Nutzi was somewhere in the mix in the emails.
I think on the emails, she was in the texts, and she obviously never said anything. And then people started going through her tweets, and it was like, clearly she was like responding to Mitchell that she wanted to hang out with him and Ann Coulter. And it's like she clearly was like friendly with these people. And I just think that's nasty. I don't like that. And then I probably shouldn't say where I got this juicy piece of intel. This like breaks, and of course, like everyone in the New York blogosphere is like, oh my God, what a turd. And one of my friends who was sort of in the mix told me that Nutzi was sending text apologies to like all of the high profile writers that she knows. And this friend of mine got one, and it was like, these aren't my values. I'm so sorry. I just thought it would be nice to be open-minded, you know? And then she found out later that she was just copying and pasting the same text and sending it to everybody in New York.
They are your values.
Those are your values. Your values are you don't give a shit about anyone but yourself, and you're mean.
Yeah.
And nobody in publishing gives a shit, I guess, because you got to keep your job for forever, you know?
Oh, yeah.
When this first happened to you back in 2017, I just was like, I can't believe this person gets to keep their job after engaging in this, like, what I think is like pretty unethical behavior. It's disrespectful, obviously. It's super unprofessional. Maybe it doesn't rise to the level of like journalistically unethical, but it's really shitty. You're in the same industry together. And I really just don't think somebody like that has any business in an industry where there are very few opportunities for people. And her writing's not that good. Sorry to be a bitch. Sorry, feminism. And I just think she spent the last like 5 or 6 years being like, well, that's over.
Yeah.
Everyone's over it. I got to keep my job. I still get to go on MSNBC, even though I did this very, very shitty thing to another person for no reason. And then this thing happens with RFK, and it really just disintegrated that whole belief system where it's just like she had United States senators out here dragging her for having done this. I was like, damn. Well, revenge sure is sweet.
It's almost like we shouldn't take people seriously just because they're thin and blonde and white. It's almost like
way to make feminism about the self.
It's almost like beauty standards are not a good way to organize society.
I'll check. I'll double check.
I just remember when it was just sort of Mitchell and Natasha and their friends having a little har about me. I just remember being like, does Tracy not see this? Like, Tracy ostensibly my friend. And I understand that it's not like she owns her like they're allowed to have their opinions.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like there's something so weird about it. But Tracy sent me an email after it all happened and was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't know any of that was going on. Or I don't remember what she said. And I think I never responded. I know it's naive to feel like a camaraderie with the people that you work with, but I don't know. And I don't dislike Tracy, but I just don't know how to repair that. And I know it's not her fault and she's not responsible for these other adults' opinions, but something about it just felt, I don't know, just bummed me out.
Yeah, I mean, it just is such a shitty situation, and it's so shitty that it happened to you. And I know it's rude to be like, ha, 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 ha. But I don't know. I just don't think you should be able to treat people that way and then be like, well, I'm the journalist of my generation.
It's really easy for people to listen to a conversation like this and say, oh, Lindy West is crying because people were mean to her, and apparently it's illegal to be mean to Lindy West. That was kind of the initial, that's how Natasha was talking about this, 7-8 years ago, whatever this was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more nuanced than that. It's like, first of all, how do we want to treat each other in general? This is a crazy way to treat people. But second of all, in order to say, I think it's dorky to care about fat people having access to health care and basic human dignity, or I actually think it's like kitschy and camp to hang out with Ann Coulter in a limo and she's my friend.
Yeah, or like that's the height of objectivity is that I'm able to spend my time hanging out with people like Milo Yiannopoulos and Ann Coulter. You are not given objectivity bona fides for hanging out with Nazis.
It means that either you agree with them, or you are not affected by their
correct
vision that they're trying to enact on the world,
Yeah.
And that's not objectivity. That's actually
it's not. That's just being a patsy for a power system that wants to destroy the two of you. You know what I mean?
That's why it matters. It actually doesn't matter because of my hurt feelings. That's just a part of my life that I'm allowed to have a feeling about.
Yeah. By the way, you are allowed to cry if someone's mean to you. That's also allowed, perfectly normal and fine.
And that's why I'm not mean to people, because I don't want to hurt them. Well, I'm mean to bad people
who deserve it.
Who deserve it.
We were kind of mean to both of them, but
well,
they deserved it.
I never said a word about it until today. I've never. I remember I sent you a screen grab of someone asking me for comment, and you were like, "I know him."
Yeah, yeah. I think you might have been in DC actually. We were doing something together in DC, and you got an email with a request for comment from some website, and you showed it to me, and I was like, "Oh, I know that reporter. That guy used to date my friend. He's a gay man. I don't want to use his name, even though it's not that difficult to figure out who he is. But he came down to DC with my friend. They stayed with me in my house. This was in 2016 before the election. Every single Uber ride he took, he would like accost the driver and be like, who do you think is going to win, Hillary or Trump? And every single Uber driver was like, I don't know. But he was like insistent on getting the everyman's take about this Trump situation. And then he kept going, Mommy Hillary's in trouble. Mommy Hillary's in trouble. And it was confusing because this friend of mine is, you know, ostensibly liberal. I figured his boyfriend would be too. And just really right away, I was like, wow, rancid vibes on this guy. Really rancid vibes. This was around the time that Caitlyn Jenner had just come out and announced she was transitioning. And he just spent the whole weekend on this like psychotic transphobic rant about Caitlyn Jenner and how, to be honest, I don't even want to repeat what he said, but it was a lot of transphobic garbage. And I just remember that whole weekend being like, I cannot wait for this fucker to get out of my house. Like, he was just so horrible. On their last day, before going to Union Station to take the train back to New York, he was like, we have to go to the diner that John Boehner goes to every morning. I want to see him. At first, I was like, is this like a bit that he's doing to be like, I'm a gay liberal from New York who ironically loves John Boehner or something. But the Caitlyn Jenner stuff obviously disabused me of that notion. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this guy fucking sucks and I want him out of my house. And then he's like, can we go to Union Station early? I want to make sure I get a Trump t-shirt at the gift shop before I head back. And I just was like, what an asshole this man is. Then he got a job at the New York Post, which I was like, okay, it's all clicking for me now. Rupert Murdoch owned property, and was like writing these articles about how a homeless guy was stealing hot food from Whole Foods. And I was like, who cares?
Good for him.
Good for him. Of course, I would never steal from Whole Foods. So, you know, and then, you know, like poverty shaming, that sort of stuff was like his beat.
A worthwhile beat, unlike the humanity of fat people.
He got the job at New York Post after he worked for this website that had asked you for a comment. And just recently, he reemerged in my atmosphere. I was like, oh, I forgot this fucker existed.
It's like the cicadas.
Nutzi and Sunderland and this guy have been buried under the earth for 11 years. They're brood X and they're hatching into my algorithm. He showed up at a debate that Mehdi Hasan, who used to have a show on MSNBC that I have appeared on, by the way.
Celeb.
He launched his own news like website, Substack, and network called Zeteo. And this asshole showed up at this debate. It was a debate between him and like an Israeli defense minister about Gaza. And this guy stood up during the Q&A section and was like, Mehdi, is Zeteo sponsored financially by Qatar? Yes or no? Answer the question. I'd like you to dispel once and for all, is your website funded by Qatar? Like, it was just so embarrassing and so stupid. And you could tell he was like nervous too, which made it even worse.
Oh, so
I was like, ew. It's like, ew, your voice is shaking while you do this. It's like, you don't even have the courage of your convictions. I'm so ashamed.
How is your voice sweaty?
Like, oh, why are you damp in your vocal cords? So, and it was just, and oh my God, Mehdi just ruined his life in front of, I don't know how many people were in the audience, but let's say a million people were in the audience, and this man got fucking destroyed. And I was like, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. That was awesome. By the way, the answer is no. Zateo is not financially sponsored by the government of Qatar. Thanks for asking. He goes, better luck next time. And I was like, and then he goes, but while we're asking questions.
You're a media columnist for the New York Post, were you not?
I'm a political reporter for the New York
You were at one time a media columnist. You should read the Washington Post interview that I did literally when Zateo was founded. And Jeremy Barr, an excellent reporter, slightly better one than you, he asked me that question. And I said, no, we haven't taken any money from foreign governments or foreign citizens. Every investor in Zateo is an American citizen, has nothing to do with Qatar. So nice try, better luck next time. By the way, since we're all in the spirit of asking questions, how do you feel about taking money from the racist Rupert Murdoch every day?
How does it feel to take money from the racist Rupert Murdoch? And I was like, oh no, I wish you'd never showed up to this event. So yeah, sometimes bad stuff happens to bad people, and that can be satisfying.
We love it.
Well, I've always wondered if you felt like one of the things at the time, and you mentioned this about Milo, is that he was so good, so skilled at whipping up like a bullying campaign. And I just wonder how wretched it would have gotten if you had even tried to respond at the time. Like, I just think it might have even been dangerous. So like, why bother? I think there's a little bit of fear I have recording this. I'm like, he's still a scary person, Milo. But it's just like, of course he didn't talk about it at the time. I mean, like Milo was like doxing people. There's like a lot of swattings happening during that Gamergate shit that was all going on. It's like, that shit was scary.
I haven't been swatted, but I've been doxxed. My address, which is where my kids live, and like I haven't been swatted, but my sister-in-law has. She had to move. It's real. Sorry.
And now all those guys get to just like sit around and cry. Speaking of crying, because I've been canceled. Like Mitchell goes on these I've been canceled podcasts all the time. And he changed his last name so people can't make the connection that this is what he was doing before.
Aww.
And now he's Caroline Calloway, the scammers PR representative. Sorry, we can cut that out.
No, it's fine. I don't fucking care. Oh, was it hard when BuzzFeed ordered me an article about you? Like, I'm sorry, you got the fucking president's friend to send 40,000 little boys after me.
Like, leave me alone.
No,
you don't get to like sit around and then be like, God, so unfair. I've been canceled. Like, well, yeah, you did have to face a professional consequence. You were texting with Nazis and telling them to harass some lady. That's bad.
It's bad.
Sorry.
You were ostensibly writing for a progressively positioned publication. And so, yes, they fired you for colluding with the Nazis.
To put a finer point on it, you were in a position of power at a feminist website asking a Nazi to go after a feminist. So,
allegedly a Nazi.
I'm glad we talked about it on our show. It's been driving me crazy for, 7 years or whatever. And I just can't believe somebody would blow up their life for RFK Jr., the world's most repulsive human male. But congrats, babe.
And
you did it.
All right. So it's very funny because I never think about this. And I have in fact forgotten about it for years at a time.
Yeah.
And it's a very crazy thing to have happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is me like dissociating to avoid thinking about it, or
honestly, I mean this in all seriousness, you gotta do what you gotta do. And so if you disassociated, good for you, babe.
Well, and it's also funny because my memories of this are very hazy. Like I think if I'm being totally honest and vulnerable, my years on Twitter were deeply traumatizing.
Yeah.
And I understand that we're all supposed to be very careful with how we use the word trauma, and that there are very serious traumas that I have not endured. But I think that psychological torture can be traumatizing. And that's what Twitter was for me. And
I'm going to go ahead and validate your use of the word trauma here. You are a very earnest person. I think we've talked about this before. There are people, and I say this as a hater myself, a born and bred hater. When we were coming up, it was okay to just hate on shit. You didn't have to come up with a reason or like a justification. You could just hate stuff. More lately, I feel like it's become more common to try to think of some like socially acceptable justification for why you dislike somebody. And I think that happened to you, where it was just sort of like, well, what the real reason I hate you is for all the same reasons that people get bullied in high school, but that's not okay to say out loud. So what I'm going to come up with is you're a bad feminist, like coming up with all these other reasons why they were allowed to hate you. Like these other people were allowed to hate you. Yeah. And then only to discover that really, once the texts leaked, it really was just high school bullying. There was no socially acceptable justification. It was just like, I'm turned off by the type of person that Lindy is, and I want to bully her. Yeah. So let's do that.
She's a fat dork. I don't like it.
Yeah.
She's an easy target. She's a great, big, soft target. But people like me, and they like my work, and my work means something to them.
Yes.
And
yeah. Turns out being vulnerable is good.
Or you could be a sour turf who's just shitty to people all day long online. And God bless you and good luck with your little career. Congratulations on whatever it is you're doing now. I mean, really, it wasn't hard to put these people out of my mind because I don't know anything about them, and I don't know them, and I don't care about them. So
you are but a speck of dust, the grand scheme of the world. Unlike Text Me Back podcast,
which is a powerhouse juggernaut. As they say in Nigeria, safe journey. My favorite Nigerian expression.
As they say in the United States, bye, bitch.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. It's Halloween season coming up, Meagan, and that's a pretty spooky time. Full of scary stuff like ghosts, goblins, ghouls, werewolves, mummies, the Wolfman, and the Swamp Man.
There's so much to be scared of.
I know. But the thing about scares is that there's things in your everyday life that are scary. It's not even just the goblins.
It's so true.
What's something that scares you?
That's true. Fears are not just relegated to spooky season. Just like you said, I love to sit in a movie theater and get scared absolutely senseless by a ghost popping out of a wall or something. A toilet or a wall. I love that. What I don't love is non-Halloween category spooks. For example, I just got my appendix taken out, and that was like the first big medical scare I have ever had. And it was so scary, it really threw me for a loop. And now I'm like worried about my health. What could possibly happen? Yeah. But I'm actually kind of looking forward to talking to my therapist about it so I can kind of work through that fear and be a little bit less scared about what my body's getting up to in all seasons of the year.
Yeah. What other parts of you could explode and need to be removed? Who can say?
Who can say? Anything could happen to you at any time.
But when you're confronted with your own mortality, a great person to talk to is a therapist. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/textmeback today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/textmeback.
Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
Meagan, it's time to plunge back into the depths of my favorite story of the century.
Mm-hmm.
I subsisted entirely off of this story for
Me too.
the week, the initial week, and then the subsequent months of investigation. And of course, I'm talking about the Titan submersible, the disappearance of the Ocean's Gate Titan submersible, the carbon fiber toilet paper tube that that Stockton Rush decided to take to the bottom of the ocean.
Full of people. And he said, let's go. And they said, okay. They said, hey, one of your ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence, right? And he said, yes, they did. And they said, let's get in. Let's get into your little Dr. Pepper can and go down to the Titanic. It sounds awesome.
When this happened last summer, this was last summer, right? Or was it 2 summers ago?
It was last summer. I remember because it was like the summer before we launched our podcast, and we were both just like, oh my God, I can't believe we don't have a podcast to talk about this.
A lot of times, sure, if you're somehow not familiar with the story, last summer, a company called Ocean's Gate, owned by a man named Stockton Rush, they were like, hey, rich people, for $250,000 or something like that, we'll take you in a tiny tube all the way down to the wreck of the Titanic, and you can look at it through a porthole the size of an apple. Like, I don't even know why.
No. I think you've forgotten. There were no windows on this thing. You could only see the wreckage through like a video feed that came in through the thing. And I was like, why the fuck would you go down to this thing? You don't even get to see it. And it's like,
Meagan, I didn't even know that. I didn't know that, Meagan. I didn't even know that. Or I forgot.
Let me double triple check. Oh yeah, no, there were no windows on this thing. The windows failed testing at shallow depths. Yeah,
okay.
Looking at the pictures, there's really not like a viewing window on this thing. Like primarily there was like a computer monitor, if I recall correctly, like at the front where you could kind of see what was going on outside the ship.
So Stockton Rush says this is safe. They dump the submersible over the side of the boat. They sink all the way down to the ocean floor. At a certain point, by the way, the Titanic, I guess, is a famously dangerous wreck.
Yeah.
There's lots of debris to get caught on.
Mm-hmm.
Stockton Rush is like, it's fine. Even though another time they did get caught on some debris and were very narrowly rescued because there was a guy on board who was like an experienced submarine pilot, and he had to like fight Stockton Rush for the video game controller to help them escape.
I'm looking at a picture now. It looks like an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
And that is what was moving the tube with no windows down to the Titanic.
So they throw it overboard. At a certain point, they lose contact with the boat on their way down to the Titanic, and then ensues like a week-long countdown where all of the coast guards of the world are searching for this little tic-tac in the ocean.
Yeah, I know.
And meanwhile, there's all these countdown clocks about like how much oxygen would they have left.
The thing is, just every single story about it was like a Michelin star meal. And look, I guess we should start off by saying it's not good when people die.
No.
However, this accident was so crazy because it was so comically avoidable. It was like they wanted to implode in a soda can at the bottom of the ocean. It was wild. Stockton Rush is out here giving quotes like, safety is the curse of invention.
He said that caring about safety slows down innovation. And yeah, if you're trying to innovate new ways for people to become squished.
Yes, you did that for sure.
And look, okay, I do want to acknowledge there was a kid, and I am sorry to this kid. I didn't like
just him.
No, the French guy. Everyone loved the French guy who was
well, there was like a submersible expert.
Yeah, his story is so crazy. Paul Henri Nargeolet. Sorry, I wasn't meant to be mocking. I just like to do a French voice. PH, they called him. He was like, look, man, I know this shit is not safe. Maybe if I go along, these people will have a tiny bit of a chance to survive. And like, that's devastating.
Yeah.
Everyone else.
What the fuck were you thinking?
You guys.
It's just, we've for the last year been like, if there's ever an opportunity to talk about the Titan submersible, we got to do it. And it happened. So they finally found some of the wreckage and they released the video of them finding it. It's so spooky. It's like just the hull of it, like kind of embedded into the ground after the implosion. And we'll share it on Instagram so you can see it if you haven't seen it. And we just were like, it's time to talk about the Titan submersible. And it's really hard to know where to start. It's such a classic tale of like late stage capitalism that you're not content living in the world that you live on and improving conditions for the people around you. You're like, no, I either have to go to Mars or I have to go to the bottom of the ocean, but fuck everybody in between those two points.
And I love when the conservative value of deregulation is tested.
Yes.
Yeah. Regulation is bad. This world is overregulated. So we should take, if I can somehow escape from regulations.
These burdensome government regulations that prevent my passengers from being squashed to death in the ocean.
Megan, do you want to say the very best part of the story?
I do.
Which I think you know what I'm talking about.
I think I do too. So the best part about this whole story is that there is one preeminent expert on the subject of submersibles that dive to the Titanic. And his name is Academy Award-winning director James Cameron. So James Cameron was wall to wall on cable news for this whole week. But there was one thing James Cameron was not saying during that week of the countdown, which is that he already knew what happened to the Titan submersible because he has connections in the Navy that have access to like very sensitive sonar equipment. And they had heard the implosion of the submersible a week before. James Cameron found out within an hour of the submersible imploding that it was gone.
They called him first. They called James Cameron.
It was like the Navy called James Cameron and they're like, guess what, dude? That shit is gone. And James Cameron hated Stockton Rush's whole ass because Stockton Rush was insufficiently respectful of the submersible community.
They were dead. The entire world, waiting with bated breath, talking about 96 hours of oxygen. My jaw literally dropped open farther and farther each day that they never cautioned everybody. These guys broke the rules. It's that simple. They should not have been legally allowed to carry passengers. To talk about a race against time, these poor people, tapping sounds ridiculous.
If you're not aware, James Cameron built his own submersible, which, by the way, has a window.
Yeah, and it rocks.
And it rocks, and it's called the Deep Sea Challenger. And he dives it all the time. He finds out about this Ocean Gate Titan submersible, and he's like, disgusted. He wasn't even so much angry as he was disappointed that somebody would disrespect the good name of submersible. You know what I mean? So he's on CNN being like, this guy's a fucking moron, paraphrase. Goddamn idiot. I don't know why anyone would have gotten into a tin can with that fucking fool. Because he already knew what the fate was of the...
But he wasn't allowed to say because it was like,
well, he couldn't betray the confidence of the United States Navy.
Exactly. But then, as soon as they were like, yeah, they're dead, then he was like, yeah, it was obvious they were dead from the first second. And so then he was all outraged about this theater that everyone had to participate in, where they pretended to search for the obviously dead, squished guys. And which, by the way, is outrageous. Like they wasted millions of doll hairs on that.
I know. And they're always like, oh, how are we going to pay for Megan's appendix to come out? Oh, how can we afford to give people free healthcare? Meanwhile, the international Coast Guard community is out here like listening for cling clangs near the Titanic. What did that cost? $8 billion? Every dollar?
If only U.S. Coast Guard could spend their time and money making little square pizzas for hungry school children.
Hey, you know how you're always like, we're always painting as some sort of heartwarming tale when some rich person pays off every kid's student lunch debt? Here's a question for you. Why is there a phrase that is called student lunch debt? Why isn't that even in our vernacular? What are you talking about?
So
I guess we spent all of our money on the submersible.
Loved the week when the submersible was missing, trying to figure out what had happened to it. I loved the James Cameron scolding. And then I loved the subsequent investigation because that New Yorker article is a banger and a half. The New Yorker did this like deep investigative piece. Although I don't think it even took that much deep digging. It was like basically every person who ever worked for OceanGate submersibles was like, toot toot on my whistle. This shit is not safe. And then
not to mention just like relying on public statements made by Stockton Rush where he was like, I don't give a fuck what happens to this thing. We're going down to the bottom of the ocean. Safety? Never heard of it. Like it was the easiest investigation ever because he was like, we're all gonna die.
This might be speculation on my part, but I feel like I read something, this is not good journalism, sorry, but that it was like they were charging all this money and the tourism aspect of it was just sort of a cover for them raising money to build more submarines that then they could contract out to oil companies for like deep sea oil speculation. Like it was fundamentally evil in many ways, other than just then imploding people. But in this New Yorker article, literally multiple guys were like, this is made of untested carbon fiber that is creaking and groaning and screaming.
Like the original pilot was like, no, I'm not going to pilot this. And he got fired. And then he contacted OSHA. In the meantime, Stockton Rush went to the director of finance at OceanGate and was like, do you want to pilot this thing? And she was like, no, dude. And I also quit. Like, no. And then OSHA was like, I don't know. So OSHA, like, apparently, according to this, contacted the Coast Guard and never heard back. So,
and they were like, well, that's all we can do.
Look, if 6 billionaires want to go down to the bottom of the ocean with an Xbox controller, that's their business.
God bless them. Poseidon bless them. And meanwhile, like there are all these regulatory agencies that certify submarines, and Stockton did a bunch of funny business to get around having to certify the sub. And so then they went down there, and I mean, it's so gruesome to contemplate because I don't know that obviously the implosion is instantaneous and you don't know that it happened because you get squished very fast. But
yes,
I'm not clear on whether or not there was a heinous cracking noise just before the implosion.
Well, I guess there are like safety measures you can put in the hull to measure the
they had like
likelihood
a little alarm
of a crunch, but instead of doing that, he just put in like an acoustic thing that would make a sound.
Yeah.
That like it was about to crunch. And then the original captain of the ship was like, you're only going to hear the sound 1 second before it implodes. And he's like, good enough. Crunch. The reason it's kind of funny is one, it's like, it's hard to feel bad for rich people who spend enormous sums of money on something this stupid. Sorry, but that's how I feel about it. But also this was happening at the same time last summer when like the orcas were capsizing rich people's yachts. So it just felt like the ocean was rising up in solidarity with the workers of the world. And it just felt like a really satisfying summer for labor rights because it just felt like the ocean was with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what made this story so special. And the vitriol with which Hollywood director James Cameron came at this deceased person who was, I'm really sorry to say it, funny as hell. So
it was funny as
thank you,
hell.
James.
And so now they have found the battered husk of the Titan on the floor of the sea, and it is spooky and it is crunched.
May rest in power.
Crunched, it's scrunched, and it's grunched down there, and I am truly sorry to anyone who was nice, who was on board. Also, by the way, can I say something controversial?
Yes.
The Titanic ? Get over it.
It was so long ago, bro, and it wasn't even that interesting. How do you like that?
How do you like that?
How do you like that? How's it taste? How's it taste, James Cameron?
Look, okay, James Cameron, he did it, and he did it well, and it's done. And we have the footage, and we know about the old lady that dropped it into the ocean at the end, and
Yes.
we know that not to drive your boat into an iceberg, and that's all I need.
I think we've learned everything we need to know, and now I would like for you all to pay your taxes, because there's kids out here with student lunch debt and people who can't get their appendices removed.
Imagine if you had paid your taxes, stayed home and watched Titanic on TV, which is a better view of the wreck.
Mhm.
Bill Paxton taking you down in his real submarine.
Sexual. Love it.
Oh.
We don't all have crushes on Bill Paxton?
No, we do, but I
we do.
don't.
Okay.
When I hear the name of someone I have a crush on, I don't just yell sexual.
Why not?
Stay home and watch it on a big screen. If you want to build a fort and watch it inside of a tiny cramped fort, that's fine to get the experience.
Yes.
Pay your taxes. You don't have enough money to go on the Titan. You're still alive, and the children have the little square pizzas.
Yes, and they can learn because they have energy for their brains.
Yeah.
Something to think about for next time. Next time a founding father's scamming great grandson reaches out asking you for $250,000, just be like, no, I'm going to be paying my taxes this time.
And by the way, oil
save a
companies, stop getting the oil. Leave it alone.
We've seen enough.
Leave it alone.
That's your Ocean Gate Titan submersible update.
Wait, Meagan, what was you had a
Yes.
funny title for that segment. What was it?
A segment we're calling, well, now you've pissed off James Cameron.
I would never.
And, well, you would never get in a submersible. Me neither.
Fuck no.
And scene.
Text Me Back is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey, Meagan, what's something that you would love to learn? Like, as an adult, do you still make time to learn new things as often as you'd like, or was that something you left behind in childhood?
You know, when I was a kid, I felt like I was always learning new things and I had a lot of curiosity, but as an adult, maybe not so much.
Okay, here's something you might not have thought of. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era can happen at any age. Newsflash, breaking news. Let's go. That might sound like a stretch, but it's not. I can actually attest that since I started therapy in, 2019, before that, I was depressed and sad, and I didn't do anything except for sit down and cry. And since starting therapy, literally, this is true. Now I garden, I make ice cream, I'm learning Norwegian, I freaking decorated my house. I went on a road trip to Florida and back. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there is this way that therapy gave me the interior space to actually have interest and engagement with the world again.
Yeah, I think for me, it's sort of the same. I spend less time focusing on my anxieties and more time absolutely crushing my reading challenge for 2024. Do you know what I mean?
What's your reading challenge? 52 books? Book a week?
No, it's very low. Please don't make me say it out loud.
Sorry. If you're thinking of starting therapy, why not give BetterHelp a try? I know something that kept me out of therapy for a long time was just the barrier to entry. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to start. But BetterHelp is entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and switching therapists at any time is free, no additional charge. And let me tell you something. It is okay to switch therapists if you guys are not vibing. I've done it, you know? So
rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/textmeback today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/textmeback.
Since 2013, Bombas has donated over 100 million socks, underwear, and T-shirts to those facing homelessness. If we counted those on air, this ad would last over 1,157 days. But if we counted the time it takes to make a donation possible, it would take just a few clicks. Because every time you make a purchase, Bombas donates an item to someone who needs it.
Go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code Wondery for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/Wondery, code Wondery.
podcast Dunzo. This was a good episode. We were kind of mean, but that's okay. That happens sometimes.
I like being mean.
But now it's over.
To be mean. No.
Now we're gonna go be nice off mic. Thanks for listening.
Oh,
Thanks
you're recording.
Yeah, I'm recording. You know what the problem is that I didnn't say well.
Yeah, I know.
You didn't get the cue.
I didn't get
Sorry.
the cue. All right.
Well, submersible. Another episode in the submersible can.
Yeah, literally in the can.
Charlie.
God, and they, they couldn't stand up in there. They had to just sit, and they couldn't pee or poop. But maybe they could pee into a little bottle if they wanted.
I guess, like a Gatorade bottle.
Yeah,
it's nasty.
It's nasty.
If you're rich, will you give me some money? For $250,000, I won't kill you. It's a pretty good deal. So.
It's on its face and also inside to its core a better deal than the Titan submersible.
So
think about it.
Okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the show. Patreon.com/textmebackpod. Another way you could support our show. Come see us live. We're going to be in beautiful Seattle, Washington at the Central Public Library, downtown Seattle. It's going to be great. It's October 15th. Tickets are free. A link to RSVP in the show notes. And we're going to have some special guests. So get into it. You don't want to miss it.
And can I also plug something else?
Yeah.
I am doing my one-woman show, Every Castle Ranked, in Eugene, Oregon. If you are from Eugene, Oregon, or anywhere within 2 hours of Eugene, Oregon, please come October 4th, 5th, and 6th at Olson Run Comedy Club.
Link
in the show notes.
So don't miss it. Guess what else we have coming up? It's a freaking virtual phone bank with our friends at Indivisible. We did these all out of order, but just go to the link in the bio. You'll find it all there, and come to all of them. Otherwise, you're canceled, and then you're going to have to go on a bunch of I Was Canceled podcasts with Mitchell Sunderland. It's the phone bank, by the way, with our friends at Indivisible, October 7th. Link in the show notes. It's going to be a gas. We're going to do a little mini episode. Snake of the week, parentheses, politician edition. You'll never guess who we pick. There's snakes at some of the highest levels we've ever seen. So sign up for that. It's going to be fun. Registration is looking very good, but we could use your help. We're going to be calling in support of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Huzzah. And finally,
we're doing another show.
We're doing
a pre-election show, live show, and a post-election live show.
Hell yeah. We're all up in this elections business. That show at the Reeser in beautiful Beaverton, Oregon, November 7th, 7:30 p.m. Be there. Tickets going fast. And I'm not just saying that as like a marketing ploy. I looked it up. Tickets going fast. So get your tickets. And we will have merch at that show.
Yep.
So show up, get your kayak dad sweatshirt. It's going to be a ball.
Please. So if you're in Oregon or Washington, you can come see us. And if you're anywhere else and you know someone that owns a theater or a club or any kind of venue, Tell them to book us and then we'll come to your town.
Do you have like a kind of big backyard? We would do that also. Set
If
up
you
some
have
chairs in your backyard.
If you have a big backyard and $3,000, we'll come.
We would do it. Yeah. You know where to find us.
Yeah.
703-829-0003 is the best friend party phone. You can call or text us anytime. Dear textmeback@gmail.com. We're on Instagram @textmebackpod, and we're on YouTube, but as I mentioned, unless we get 10,000 subscribers, she gone.
Get to work on that, please. All
Please.
right. Thanks, everyone. We love you.
Bye, girl.
Thank you so much for listening to Text Me Back. If you like the show, please tell your best friend about us. Be sure to rate and review us. It helps people find the show. And most importantly, please support our Patreon so we can keep making this. It's patreon.com/textmebackpod. Text Me Back is a production of Meagan and Lindy, proud members of the BFF Network. Our senior producer is Megan Hatcher-Mays. Our other senior producer is me. Our show is supported by Co-Pilot Collective and produced by Allie Slice. Our digital strategist is Chance Nichols.
Diana Bowen is our video and creative wizard. Our production team includes Lindy West, Megan Hatcher-Mays, our loves, our anxieties, and our fears.
Our music is by Chief Ahamefule J. Oluo.
Special thanks to our perfect angels, Jeannie Yandel, Brandy Fullwood, and Isolde Raftery.
I'm Lindy West.
And I'm Megan Hatcher-Mays. See you next week. Mwah!